Welcome to Smart Manufacturing Mindset, where we challenge guests to think differently about manufacturing. We'll explore the nuances that hide in plain sight behind the acronyms, techno-jargon, and misinformation to get to the truths that hold real value for real people in the industry.
Hello and welcome. My name is Mike Yost. I'm your host today for the next session of the CESMII Smart Manufacturing Mindset LinkedIn Live event. In every episode, we challenge ourselves and our guests to think differently about smart manufacturing. Oftentimes, that means taking something that's very familiar to us and thinking about it through the lens of digital capabilities, such as the case today, where I will have panelists joining me to talk about digital lean. So joining me in the studio here today are Tony Kanoff, Process Excellence Manager with Phoenix Contact. Hi, Tony.
Hello.
Also, we have Tim Stuart, the President of Visual Decisions. Hello, Tim. And lastly, we have Conrad Leiva, Vice President of Workforce and Ecosystem Development at CESMII. Welcome, Conrad.
Hi, Mike.
Great to have all of you here, and we are looking forward to the conversations, and we'll get those started after just a few housekeeping items. First of all, if you do not know CESMII, you should. They are the National Institute for the U.S. on Smart Manufacturing, a public-private partnership with the Department of Energy. CESMII is a nonprofit public-private partnership, and they drive technology research and the creation of educational materials. And they're also helping build the smart manufacturing ecosystem through events such as this. I would also like to thank SME for their role in helping to sponsor and co-produce this series. So our goal with this series is for us to think differently about what it means to be a modern day manufacturer. We are live streaming this event on LinkedIn, and we encourage you to go ahead and post your comments, ask any questions you want, and if they fit within the flow of the conversation and we have time, we'll do our best to get to those questions. The event is being recorded, so you can watch it again and again as many times as you like. And lastly, I would encourage you to follow CESMII on LinkedIn. Check out their website at CESMII.org, where you can learn more about their offerings and their membership, projects, research, et cetera, et cetera. So with that, let's get on to the show and talk to our guests. So let's start, Conrad, with you. I guess I'd like you all to answer this question and maybe start by giving a little bit of context of your role and your background. But how do you define what digital lean is in the context of smart manufacturing? So, Conrad, you want to kick us off?
Sure, Mike. Thanks for having me at the show today. So Conrad Leiva, I have over 30 years in manufacturing as an industrial and systems engineer, working on smart manufacturing initiatives, and now with CESMII focused with the ecosystem of consultants and educators to get smart manufacturing skills and education implemented at scale nationwide. But your question, I love your question. So look, digital lean in the context of smart manufacturing is what is happening is that I'm going to make 2 points. One is that from a mindset point of view, smart manufacturing and lean mindset are very aligned. We still, the demand pull versus push, large quantity of one, to make highly personalized items, but are all still in play. But we're adding a digital mindset on top of that lean mindset for smart manufacturing. The big shift is the methodology, because we get to have a lot more tools in the arsenal that go beyond the manual and visual ways of the traditional lean and move to more semi-autonomous, proactive ways that are assisted by technology. So ways that, we anticipate issues and proactively take actions instead of waiting to react once the problem occurs.
So you're are you saying that the traditional approaches of lean are foundationally built upon data, and that the tool sets available today now are making the data available and bringing them alive, and even giving more capabilities for predicting and preventing issues?
Yeah, and in real time, the data in real time, not like it used to be. Somebody took a day or more to put it into a spreadsheet. Right?
Gotcha. Well, excellent. Well, I appreciate that. Let's get the others to weigh in here as well. Tim is joining us from far off lands, so let's get to him quickly. Tim, a little bit on your background and your views on digital lean.
Sure. My name is Tim Stuart. I run Visual Decisions. I've been in the space of using information from the shop floor to improve operations since 2002, and have worked with customers across most every discrete manufacturing industry. In terms of digital lean and how that works with smart manufacturing and so forth, the analogy that I really like to use to explain that is a Fitbit. I've been wearing a Fitbit for 11 years now, and I haven't lost any weight. And it's not the Fitbit's fault. The Fitbit is a great IoT device. It does exactly what it's supposed to do. It has advanced sensors that track a lot of different signals, AI that translates those signals into footsteps and heartbeats and sleeping patterns and more. It generates a lot of pretty charts and graphs on my phone, on my computer. So why haven't I lost the weight? And the short answer is that I haven't changed my behaviors. I haven't made a habit of utilizing the information provided by the Fitbit on a daily basis to lose that weight. And it's the same thing when you put IoT or a lot of other smart manufacturing systems on the shop floor. It's not going to provide the benefits that you're looking for unless people change their behaviors to utilize the information being provided. Otherwise, you're just getting those signals and you're applying AI and getting lots of pretty charts and graphs that nobody's doing anything with. And to me, digital lean provides a fantastic way to ensure that the data from the smart manufacturing systems gets used on a daily basis to improve the operations. So that's at a high level how I see those things fitting together.
So I guess along those lines, why did you buy the Fitbit in the first place?
I wanted to lose the weight.
You wanted to lose the weight. Excellent. Okay. So you had a valid reason for buying it. You just haven't had the discipline to follow it. Okay. Because oftentimes that's a challenge of people saying, I want to get, new technology, or I want to get, some shiny object. And that draws people's attention as opposed to focusing on the outcomes they're looking for.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk to a lot of the vendors in the space, they're magic beans, right? If you buy the system, you're magically going to get those improvements. And the reality is that there's a lot of hard work to do once you have the system in place.
Right. Well, excellent. Well, then let's switch over to Tony. Tony, do you have a Fitbit or an opinion on digital lean as you see things?
Well, I do not have a Fitbit. I have an Apple Watch.
There you go.
Kind of does a similar thing, but yeah. So as Mike mentioned, I'm Tony Kanoff. I'm Process Excellence Manager at Phoenix Contact, located in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. If you're not familiar with our company, Phoenix Contact, we develop and manufacture innovative products and solutions for connecting, distributing, and controlling power and data flows. Now, at the company, I've been here for 28 years. I'm responsible for the company's integrated ISO management systems, product compliance, and business process management infrastructure. And it's mainly from that business process management infrastructure that we attack or apply lean to our business processes and so forth. So to jump into the question that Mike posed, I'm going to go to a little bit more of a classical type answer here. Whereas we know that lean's focused on increasing value or efficiency, mainly by reducing waste. Well, in the context of this discussion in smart manufacturing, digital lean, it's really, I think it's a term that simply it's emerged to signify this intersection of the application of that traditional lean principles that we're used to with the industry 4.0 digital and the physical technologies that we deal with today.
So maybe one quick question for Leiva. Is this a big deal? It feels to me like this is a big deal. That digital lean, right? Conrad talked before about having access to the information when you need it in a more timely basis. Are we? Is digital lean a big deal here?
It's a big deal.
I believe it is. For me, smart manufacturing is made much more effective if you have the process on the back end to take advantage of those new capabilities for your business. And it also, to me, means that your lean initiatives can be made much more successful by having the digital infrastructure in place and enabling those tools with, as Conrad was saying, the real-time information and being able to not only just react more quickly, but also have much more context and much more data available to be proactive in making improvements.
Excellent. Conrad, anything to add?
I think it is a big deal because in many ways, I think we can do lean better than ever. So I think so. We'll get into more examples, I guess, as we go along.
Yeah, just as an anecdote, I remember many years ago, a business leader from an automotive manufacturer stating at a conference that they could do lean without supporting technologies, but with it they could see the results faster and they could make the results stick longer. And that was the big selling feature for them, is they weren't fighting over the validity of the data. They were using the data to drive the process improvements. So Tony, I wanted to come back to you and just get your perspective sort of on the current state of lean in manufacturing and how digital lean is reshaping traditional approaches.
Sure. I think my perspective on digital lean is that, and I come from an vantage point within my own company. So I'm not saying that everyone might experience this same thing, but I think at least within my company, I think that there's a real broad awareness across the organization that there's a lot of digitalization type tools and methods that can be applied to processes across the company, and specifically in manufacturing and the operations that go on around manufacturing. And they can improve product quality, the process quality. They can improve the efficiency of the assets that we have, naturally lower cost, could improve safety within our plants. And the other big initiative that most companies have today is pursuing some sort of sustainability type initiatives. So digital lean can contribute to that as well. But I think that what's maybe not widespread throughout the organization today is appreciation that, and I'm going to call it a craft of applying traditional lean tools and methods, that lays a solid foundation for an accelerated optimization that can take place after you start adding now digitalization onto those basic foundational lean principles.
That's great. Accelerated optimization. I think that's a fantastic way to look at it. Conrad, did you have something to add there?
Well, Mike, adding to that, I mean, I also think that I've read some articles and had some testimonials, right, from some of the manufacturers we're working with, that it seems like the lean continuous improvement efforts have been slowing down over the last few years, or the drive, you don't hear as much about them. So some companies, I think, felt that these efforts have plateaued. Perhaps the low-hanging fruit have been harvested. So I also see smart manufacturing techniques as bringing some new ways of increasing productivity and really injecting some new passion and interest into continuous improvement efforts. Maybe Tim and Tony, I don't know if you're seeing the same things.
It would be good. It would be good as we talk about an industrial revolution that we're living through, that people were actually excited about it. So, Tim or Tony, any response to Conrad's viewpoint there?
I do think that lean is reasonably mature out in the general market. I think that a lot of companies have adopted at least some aspects of lean,
Right.
and on the other hand, I think that very few have what I would term as kind of a pure and full lean manufacturing implementation. And that's okay. As with any other tool set, use the ones that provide a maximum impact with kind of the least effort possible. I do strongly believe that some of the basic elements of lean, such as 5S and problem solving approaches and concepts around flow, should be understood and embraced by everyone where those things are applicable. Where I do think that there's room for growth for companies that have embraced lean is that there are a lot of kind of lean traditionalists out there that are very married to the tick sheets and the whiteboards that have traditionally been utilized to facilitate the data within lean. And I think that there's been a shift over the recent years to embrace some of the automation that's available within smart manufacturing to move that forward. But I still do run into a significant number of lean people that are afraid to give those things up because they feel they're going to lose the hands-on understanding that people get when they collect the data themselves. And for those people, I just try to help them understand that if you're really looking for people to understand that data, just the act of collecting it doesn't help to me as much as putting programs in place to utilize that information once you have it. And if you take the same amount of time to use the information to drive improvements that you do to have those people collect that information in the first place, then I think that you can both benefit more as an organization, as well as then deepen that understanding on an individual level.
Excellent. So obviously some cultural changes and evolution here that we're going through. So so I'm just looking and wanted to remind everybody that we are on LinkedIn Live. So if you have questions, please feel free to put them into the comments section. And I do see that there are folks that are commenting here and asking some questions. And we do have a question from Michael that's asking about advice on how to bring smart manufacturing digital lean techniques to his own company. Using traditional lean and start building the foundations to begin implementing. So apologize to everybody. I mentioned Tim was out of faraway land. Looks like he's had some camera problems. We'll look to get him back. But Conrad, you work obviously on, you talked at the top about educating the nation on best practices to move forward, adopt smart manufacturing and such. Would you like to comment on Michael's request as far as getting started with these techniques? And then we can have Tony comment as well.
Yes. The good news is that there's a lot of practical technologies available that can be implemented, even in small companies that are available to automate some of the things that we want to do in lean. So technologies like auto ID, whether it's through RFID or barcoding, but can help us track parts and materials in the plant and reduce inventory and implement just-in-time techniques. much more efficient. I mean, than Kanban card systems can be, but it's kind of like an electronic Kanban kind of systems can be implemented very easy with these technologies. And you have that benefit of the real-time data, and you can streamline that data going all the way into the ERP system, your warehousing system, your inventory system, so that it's all in sync. The physical and the digital is all in sync in your factory. You can use things like cameras that are pretty economical and for vision systems, and they can really detect the equipment moving around the plant, the bins, the product moving around the plants. So there's a lot of technologies available and techniques available that make it practical to start for a company to start implementing this and put in place a good foundation for systems and data and sharing that data and the whole enterprise.
So Tony, you had mentioned earlier about sort of gaps in the company knowledge of sort of the power of some of these things. Do you have any tips as far as sort of bringing the organization along? As Michael asked about getting started, there's some other comments as well. People asking about changing mindsets and moving things forward. How about in your experience, how you help get going?
Yeah, I do. One of the things that I've observed, at least in my own organization, is as you start getting beyond your traditional lean techniques and into applying digital solutions, really there's an organizational dynamic that has to take place where now all of a sudden the IT team starts coming into the manufacturing operation. IT, you have to get them involved, collaborate with the IT teams. Many times, the IT team will see opportunities perhaps that were just, out of view to the traditional lean practitioner and so forth. And that is an opportunity, but it's also a bit of a risk that has to be managed, that you don't go 100 miles an hour down a path and get your improvement efforts like totally out of control. I know we're going to talk about that a little bit more. One of the things that I would recommend to anyone that's starting out, trying to add digitalization on top of your typical lean work, is think hard through where do you want to go with it, what do you want to achieve from the digitalization, and start thinking through on what is going to require the least amount of effort but give me the most amount of value in return for that effort. Start small with that and then build from that. And many times those projects that require the least amount of effort give you the most value. It might be, looking at areas focused on quality, like sensing and detection of errors and quality of materials, that sort of thing, and then branching off from there, we start adding intelligence about the assets that you're using in the manufacturing process.
Well, let's bring Tim back in here, because Tim, you've been actively working with manufacturers in their environments for 2 decades, and so ground us a little bit here on some examples. Like, where do you see digital lean positively impacting performance, output efficiency, things like that? Give us some examples, and potentially to Tony's point, maybe some best practices of how people got started or where they started to focus.
Yeah, I'll handle that second part first.
Okay.
Where I like to start with customers is actually at the end. If you think back to Stephen Covey back in the 90s and early 2000s, begin with the end in mind. And for me, that's understanding what is it that the business is really trying to achieve. Are you looking for growth? Are you looking for throughput? Are you looking to improve your quality metrics, reduce cost? All of those things have different strategies that you can put in place when it comes to both lean as well as the smart manufacturing. And so understanding that side of things and then working backwards from where do you want to be to, through how do you actually achieve that. And for me, that's how I get started with the different projects.
And then
In terms of
in that process, Tim, I'm sorry, to Tony's point about potentially now you have different parts of the organization getting involved, whether it's IT or other groups. So when you say make the decisions, like what's your experience been, or how do you advise folks as far as who owns this, or how do you work across departmental boundaries and things like that?
Good question. In terms of who owns it, again, based on what is it that you're trying to achieve, it could be different groups. If you're really trying to improve your quality as the primary part of this, maybe somebody from that organization would own it. But I think that you really need to have a broad base of support for these initiatives. For something like IoT, or any other system where you're collecting data from the shop floor, you may have a set of initial use cases in mind when you implement that. But the reality is that there's a lot of things you can do across pretty much every department once you have that data available. And so you may have kind of an individual owner for the project, but I think you need to get involvement from everybody. One example of that is that I did implementation at a customer that makes beauty products. And for that plant manager, he was struggling for a while to really get his people to embrace digital lean, or not digital lean, but lean in the first place. And he actually had an interesting approach where he utilized the digital implementation to drive the lean initiative, and very consciously doing that. And so once we had the data collection in place and we had a sufficient amount of data collected, he initiated a 12-week blitz where for every line in the plant, we were collecting data and we were utilizing that data on a weekly basis to identify what were the biggest losses on each line, and doing a weekly Kaizen project where we had every single person from management was involved in these Kaizens, and they each had their different areas of responsibility. And the engineers, the operators, supervisors, everybody else was part of this team. And by doing this blitz based around the information coming from the system, he was really able to teach everybody not only the lean concepts, but also how to implement those in real life by utilizing this data and organizing things around that. So for me, it can be a very beneficial activity from both sides.
And I think that's a good example of sort of blending the old and the new, right? Because that's a very traditional manufacturing approach to get after a problem and attack it, right? And so using that in collaboration with the digital infrastructure and the tools to do it more effectively, I think is a great blend. I wanted to have a conversation as we get into data, information, et cetera, about metrics and KPIs. And so I wanted to throw this to Conrad and get your thoughts on, I guess the metrics. How do folks measure the success of digital lean implementations?
Yeah, very, very important, right? Because this is one of the main reasons we're collecting data, and like Tim said, that data and the reporting and the dashboards can drive the behavior that you want. And if you want to drive the right behaviors, please do not use OEE as a metric.
Okay.
Definitely not a lean metric. So instead, we want customer-centric metrics that encourage, cost, schedule, quality, things that customers are really interested in. Metrics related to speed and flow in the plant, cycle time or unplanned downtime is okay. On-time completions, labor performance, all these affect cost and schedule. So So that would be my recommendation, to make sure what are the behaviors you want to drive in your organization.
So are you criticizing OEE directly, or more the focus that it's too machine centric versus being customer centric, or what's your position there?
Well, all I have to say is, if you haven't read the book The Goal, you should. I mean, that's very important in the lean community, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to drive the right behaviors. Utilization of the machine is not your main metric. You're there to get product out to the customer, so it should start with a customer centric and metric.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Tony or Tim, either of you want to comment here on metrics? Tony, what types of metrics do you use? Do you agree with Conrad's approach, or are you guys an OEE shop? Or
I'll definitely agree with him on collecting the KPIs, making them meaningful, making them customer centric, and work your way back on how do you achieve that within your particular operation that you're trying to execute. But when I think about digitalization, it for the most part, it just makes possible the organization to capture bigger and better data from whatever it is you choose to measure, and then in turn that enables the organization to make decisions closer to real time and make accurate predictive type measurements and so forth that's based on real data, rich data. And in turn, your predictions, your management reactions that you can make are just guaranteed to be based on better information.
Tim, how about you? How about you have the conversation with folks about metrics, KPIs, et cetera? What are your thoughts on the discussion here?
You will definitely agree with Conrad that customer centric metrics are the best way to go about things. Also, I spoke earlier about trying to work backwards from where are the benefits that you're trying to drive, and really identify what are the metrics that are going to help support that. Because people are typically focused on, naturally trying to achieve the metrics that they're being measured on. And so if you're trying to influence behaviors, select a set of metrics that are going to help shape the behaviors that you're looking for in support of your goals. I will say that OEE is not necessarily a terrible metric, but it depends on, first of all, the application of it, how you actually configure that calculation within the customer, and then most importantly, how you utilize that metric to influence behaviors on the shop floor. And Conrad, you're shaking your head violently.
Yeah. I mean, look, I just recommend people look up the dangers of OEE as a KPI out there, and there's several good articles on this topic on some of the things to watch out for. I'm just saying that there's better metrics.
Well, I think it drives the point that we're trying to illuminate here in this episode and this workshop overall, or this series overall, right? That it's a different way of looking at things, and there isn't one metric that's going to be the end all be all, right? And it has to be we're talking about being customer focused and having it drive proper behaviors, having the end in mind. Those those are all very positive things that I think it would be wrong of you to think that there's a single metric you're going to go start tracking OEE, and then you're going to magically get those other things to fall into place accordingly. So all sounds logical to me. So we're going to sort of start to ramp towards a close here. Just a couple of other things to touch on, and certainly welcome more conversation in the comments if you have any questions. Tony, I just wanted to turn to you. We've been talking about the opportunities, talking about the big stuff, talking about how we get folks going. Maybe just a moment on the challenges that you see organizations, or maybe within your organization, that you face of getting the message across and getting, I don't want to say digital lean adopted, but these philosophies we're talking about, getting them into practice in your organization.
Sure. I think one of the big challenges with digital lean is we see a lot of new and shiny objects out there. They're being marketed, all around us. You pick up, trade journal, what have you, go to a trade show, you see these things. And, the big challenge is like, you need to avoid rushing towards a solution. And I bring this back to traditional lean here. Rather than rushing to a solution, is just apply some fundamental traditional lean type principles. Try to determine what it is you want to achieve, where your challenges are on achieving that, and then add on the digitalization type efforts, as it makes sense. And I give you one example of that is, and it's often overlooked, but lean gets directly at it. Is when you look at a manufacturing process and you go out to where the work is really being done, and apply some traditional lean. It's really good at at um, at uncovering any hidden factories that are taking place. So workarounds that the frontline workers are needing to do and so forth. And a lot of times that workaround or hidden work is necessary, but if you jump into it and apply digitalization without accounting for that and overcoming um, those hidden factories which are wasteful, you can actually cement it. You can cement it with the digitalization that you do, and could in fact make the situation worse, make it worse for the frontline workers, and you really could choke the overall process.
Excellent. Well, appreciate that. I see a comment from Jeffrey that corporate culture plays a big role in the successful implementation of any digital lean initiatives, and certainly agree with that. And I think that there's a lot of work going on right now. And maybe Conrad, a quick question for you on the workforce side. I know there's a lot of the conversation that we have is educating people on sort of the changing culture, right, and being data driven, et cetera. So you're the workforce leader there at CESMII. So how do you see how this impacting the workforce, the digital lean initiatives, and this learning and being data driven, et cetera?
Yeah. Great point brought up by Jeffrey. I mean, one of the challenges is that this is a culture change, and education can address some of this, but it's also a mindset issue. So, for example, right, all these metrics bring higher levels of transparency, which can make supervisors uncomfortable with everybody can see how their departments and cells are performing, and they, since everything is more automated, there's less ability to fudge the numbers for this week if you're having a bad week and trade off some things. Right, we all know that those kind of things happen in manufacturing. So there's some new culture changes there with transparency, and also with the new skills. Right, so it's new skills with new technology. It can make workers uncomfortable. They can make them feel that they will become obsolete. So training program needs to be put in place, and training programs that not only teaching the new skills, but are enabling a new, more flexible workforce, because we're used to be, you learned a few things, and you kept you focused on being a very specialized, highly specialized worker, and that gave you job security. But these days, job security means you need to have more skills, be very flexible, be able to handle a wider range of products and processes, and the technology is there to not only help you train, but can also help you while you're doing the job. So things like from simpler digital work instructions to more involved augmented reality with vision and projection systems. But there's technology available to help the worker and augment the worker and make them more productive and being able to handle a wider range of jobs.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we're looking at, I know in my area right now, is mentors and coaches, folks that can help advise people, come alongside, and tap people's brains and share in community, right? And I think that's part of the ecosystem. Is how do we get a little bit of advice that doesn't necessarily come out of a formal training class? So I think that's another big area. I want to just give Tim one last question here from the audience, because I think it ties back to what he was asking about, or what he's been talking about the whole time, and then we'll wrap this up with our final takeaways. There was a question about how do you motivate companies? Here we go. How do you motivate companies to make the investment, try to move away from the old ways of doing things?
I very much believe that starts with an understanding of, again, what the business is really trying to achieve and working backwards from there. And so it's understanding those business strategies, it's understanding where you stand today, and then taking the process backwards to the point where you can say, okay, these are the things that need to be done. So for me, that's important. I do have one other comment on Jeffrey's question that Conrad helped answer there. For me, there's a very much of a big brother fear within a lot of the workforce for these different technologies. And we primarily think of that at the operator level, and it's definitely something that has to be addressed there, but it's really throughout the organization. People love visibility down. People hate visibility up. Even at the plant manager level, I've worked with a company where I knew this plant manager from a previous job, and we implemented a system to collect data, and he was absolutely loving it because he was, had new visibility he had never had before to the, what was happening on the shop floor and so forth. Then one day I was in his office and I casually mentioned the fact that the VP of operations at corporate was able to see this. And he literally stopped me, went out, collected the data collection hardware from the shop floor, brought it into his office, and sent it home with me. Because he did not want the corporate VP of operations to understand at a detailed level what was happening in the plant.
Wow. We'll leave it at wow. So yeah, real challenges and real changes that obviously we have to learn from together, and figure out how to move forward, individually and collectively. So.
Mike, something that I like to recommend as a motivator is really to think of lean beyond continuous improvement, to look at lean and smart manufacturing as being more of a link to the business strategy. And when you link it to business strategy and to the business goals, that can also be a driver in an organization. So and do that throughout the whole ranks. Make this really a lean and digital mindset in the corporation.
Excellent. Appreciate that. All right. Well, we've had a great conversation here for about the past 45 minutes on digital lean. And so I would definitely like to thank Conrad and Tim and Tony for being here, and just want to ask each of you to take us home here. I can tell you I took a bunch of notes and some highlight things talking about accelerating optimization through digital lean. Had the conversation around OEE as a metric versus focusing on more outwardly focused metrics for your customers. Yeah, well, I can't even read my writing with that last one. So Tony had another really great point that I missed. But so I'd just like to ask each of you to give us a takeaway here. If you can, everybody gets something to take away from this conversation we've had here today. What would you recommend for them? So Tony, why don't you lead us off?
Okay, I'll start it off. So my takeaway is that you can invest a lot of resources into adding digitalization or automation to a poorly performing or a bad process, but all you're going to come out with is just an automated bad process. So it's wise to apply some fundamental lean efforts to make a bad process good before you push on and start investing a lot of resources into digitalization. But then when you get to that stage, then you can make a good process great with your digitalization efforts.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Tim, how about you? What are the takeaways here?
A couple things. One is, going back to my Fitbit analogy, there are no magic beans or anything else. Putting these systems in won't make the improvements themselves. You still have to utilize that information, and Lean gives you a good set of already database tools that you can apply these digital technologies to and supercharge those to improve the operations in the business. The other closing thought is that you have to be careful of creating monuments in the business. And in Lean, monument is often a post out on the shop floor that prevents you from reorganizing the lines in certain ways and so forth. But you can also have a monument in a process that becomes something that's unalterable, that you just have to work around. And so as you're thinking about these technologies and how to implement them, make sure you're not creating any monuments for the business when you do so.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And Conrad, how about you? You have the last word here.
Well, it's not lean or digital. Think of it as lean and digital. And it's not just Kaizen and continuous improvement. It's also push and cannery and kind of strategic thinking that needs to be done also. And CESMII has a systematic approach to help manufacturers put a technology-enabled strategic roadmap in place. So to find out more about that, please check out the CESMII website and look for roadmap processes under education.
Excellent. Well, thank you all. I appreciate it. Appreciate the time from our guests here. Appreciate everybody logging in, asking questions. Sam, Jeffrey, Michael, others. I will comment that whenever we have technology-centric events, we get a lot of registrations. But whenever we get to these types of conversations about lean, continuous improvement, actual things in the plants, that's when we get the most interaction from people chiming in. So it's great for me to see that this is real stuff, and we were able to have some great conversations with some real practiced professionals here. So thank you all for your time. Also want to thank SME for their role in helping to produce this LinkedIn Live series alongside CESMII and the work that they're doing to build the CESMII ecosystem and hopefully instill the right mindset. I would encourage you again to get to know CESMII, follow them on LinkedIn, look them up online at cesmi.org. You can stream previous versions of the LinkedIn Live series here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And you can join us again next month when we will be back here for the next edition of our Smart Manufacturing Mindset event on LinkedIn Live. We host these events the last Tuesday of every month. So plan to be back with us on February 27th as we continue to build momentum in 2024. So until then, remind you that when you think about smart manufacturing, think differently. Take care, everybody.